Hi, I'm Randy Cantrell. Welcome to the Year of the Peer podcast with Leo Batari. This podcast is based on a simple truth. Who you surround yourself with matters. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari will interview thought leaders from all walks of life who will share how they leverage peer advantage and show you how engaging your peers more purposefully can hold the key to greater success in business and in life. Our guests today are Bri Seeley and Thais, founders of the Amplify Collective, based in Los Angeles. As life coaches, writers, speakers, and entrepreneurs, they founded the company because even after Bri had lived in LA for 4 years and after Thais had been there for a year, they were struggling to make authentic connections in the city while working to get their businesses off the ground. Desperate for the connection of an authentic, tight-knit community of women, Bri and Thais created a sisterhood for themselves and countless others, not to trade business cards and false platitudes, but to communicate, collaborate, and support one another on a deeper level. Leo, let's get started.
Thais and Bri, welcome to the program. We're so excited to have you here.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, anytime. Thais, you and I met, of course, on a live radio show,
We did.
Expert Dojo.
Yeah.
Where I got to learn about your work kind of firsthand right then, and was really so excited about what you and Bri are doing that I really wanted to make sure that we shined a bright light on that for our audience today to really give them a sense of what that's all about. So if you could, I'd love you just to dive right into the Amplify Collective and
Yes.
talk about how it was that you decided to get this done and what the purpose really is. And I'd love both of you to kind of give your individual perspectives on it, because I know you kind of come at it from different experiences going into this.
Yeah, so Amplify was an accident, and we love to share that because I know that there comes a lot of strategy that's required to grow a business, and we did not anticipate we would be growing a business to this caliber. I run my own business as a speaker, motivational speaker, teacher, coach, and as does Bri.
Yes.
And we came together because we had the same coach, and so we were both developing our businesses together. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I reached out to Bri to get to know her more and to, start to develop my network here in Los Angeles. And one thing that I found was really, really painful, the whole networking experience. It's just so uncomfortable. And I consider myself an introvert. I mean, I love to speak, but I don't necessarily like to go into a room where I don't know anybody and have to present and pitch myself in a way that seems so grandiose and disconnected from who I authentically am. And so when Bri and I met, we instantly became friends. And I professed to her my dislike for networking. And she has her own stories of trauma about networking. And so we decided to throw a dinner party together. And to get together some events to support women in finding a different way of connecting. And it started with just one happy hour experience, and that led to dinner parties every month. And that led to, wow, okay, this is starting to become a business. Women are starting to find an impact. What else can we do? Like, are we committed to making this be a business? And last April, we were like, yes, we're committed. We want this to be a global impact. And that's how Amplify officially started.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been like, I love looking at it because we, so many people are like, well, I'm going to start a business. What is it going to be? And we kind of did it in the opposite direction. We just started doing things. And then it was continuously checking in with one another, being like, okay, we're 6 months in. I want more. Do you want more?
Yeah.
And then going from there. And then, the next month after April, we were like, let's start a podcast. Okay, so let's commit to the podcast for 6 months. Then we got done with the podcast for 6 months and we were like, I want to do a season 2. Do you want to do a season 2? Mm-hmm. And so we actually, just at the end of the year, finally formed Amplify into a corporation. So we did this for a good year, just on like kind of one step at a time before actually fully committing to.
And this is what we recommend to almost every partnership, because being in business with a partner is radically different than running your own business or running your own business and having a team underneath you, right? We're both 50-50. And so we have to find a way to be in that state of collaboration on a consistent basis. And so when you start small, you start to develop the relationship bit by bit so that when you have a whole business underneath you, you know how each other work. you know how to create the systems required in order for the business to work.
We had a guest on just a few weeks ago, Vitaly Galam, who said that basically a startup isn't a small version of a large company. He said it's an idea or an experiment in search of a business model. And I think in many respects, what you've just described is this idea that has found its way to a business model, which is really, really exciting and really great. But with that, though, in the Amplify Collective, you got to tell me about unnetworking, because I think you really got to introduce that concept so people have a sense of what that's all about and why it's so important. I was really impressed with it when you explained it.
So basically, when we had that first dinner party, when we went around the table to help the women connect with one another, we decided to have each of them not only, say their names, obviously, but instead of saying their job titles, say something that they were really excited or passionate about in that moment.
It came out of nowhere. It's not like we pre-planned that. It just came out of our mouths. Let's not talk business tonight, because we're all entrepreneurs. Most of the people at the table are entrepreneurs. They're passionate about what they do. And that can become all-consuming. You just get consumed into business talk. But we're more than just business women. We have such a vast array of other expertises, other things that we're passionate about.
Well, and the other thing that we found too is that as women, we tend to almost hide behind our job titles as well. Mm-hmm. If we come out with this job title, then we don't have to show up fully. In whatever's going on in our life or, anything else, or have any sort of
perfectionism.
We don't have to have that depth required. If you then remove that piece, and then it's okay, well, but without my job title, who am I?
Yeah.
And so I'd had an experience, it was about 6 months before that, where I shut down a business and had to go through this whole existential crisis of well, if I'm not a fashion designer, what am I? I don't know who I am without this job title.
No.
And so we found very quickly that by women leading with what they're passionate about or excited about or what they're creating in the moment, it actually allowed a deeper and more quick level of intimacy and connection between them than, say, if they just went around the table and said, lawyer, accountant, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and, it's so easy for us to stereotype people into what they do. Once we know that you do something and we don't vibe with that or we don't understand that, it's not because I'm a chemical engineer and a blah, blah, blah. You kind of your eyes go and what? You don't really know where to go, and you try to fake interest because you want to be nice, and you're like, yeah, that sounds great. But you just miss an opportunity to actually connect with someone. And the crux of a successful business, as any successful business person will tell you, is your network, is your connection, is your ability to be in relationship with other people. Business is all about relationships, right? We know this. And yet many of us want to hide behind our computer. Many of us want to be on social media and pretending like we're actually creating a change in that capacity. But that's not how it works. And so we found that through our networking, we remove that veil of having to put ourselves on this pedestal of our business title, and we actually allow people to connect in a deeper way.
What I like too is, actually both of you use this language in terms of it's the difference between what I am and who I am, right? What I am may be a lawyer. Who I am is much bigger than that and much deeper than that. And that's what's really exciting. And what I like about what you're doing and what I've been so impressed with is, first of all, the fact that you got out and just did this, right? I'm a baby boomer, and the baby boomers, we were all kind of taught when we grew up that good things come to those who wait. And what I see in your generation is good things come to those who act. And what's really wonderful is that you saw something and you acted. You didn't wait for someone else to, to figure it out or do whatever.
I joke because...
I'm sorry?
Well, I joke because we both said that if we actually knew what we were getting into, we would never have done it. But so many people sit around and play out those worst case scenarios of and all that fear gets in the way. And we were just oh, we're just going to throw a dinner party. And then the next month, oh, we're just going to have another one. And just little by little, instead of looking to be this is going to be a 50-year business, just we're going to throw a dinner party. And I think that's how we were able to take action, is because we just took it one step at a time instead of making it this huge, massive, impossibility of a concept. And so, I think that's had we looked at that massive impossibility of a concept, both of us would have been oh, we're good.
Well, and I think a lot of people, when they are approaching this idea of creating a business for themselves, they see they see the 10-year vision, they see the 20-year vision, and that can excite the crap out of them, that they see this big impact that they want to make, but then it's very difficult to take that big impact and then what are we doing tomorrow? What do we need to focus on right now? And so we're kind of glad that we didn't have that big vision. We're still stepping into the big vision. We're still asking ourselves, is this vision big enough? And I love that because it doesn't debilitate us from then knowing how to take action tomorrow and the next month.
And it seems to be for the right reasons too. I think what you've experienced is that this is having an impact in women's lives. So
we hope so.
Wow, this is so good. Why wouldn't we want to impact women, not just in LA, but everywhere? And how can you make a difference in that regard? So as you see scaling this business, have you talked a lot about how you hope to do that and how you develop that?
Well, when we first started, it was just a dinner party for 14 women a month. So that's great impact. You know, we sold out, we got to the point where we were selling out of dinner parties 3 months, 4 months ahead of time. So the desire for it was there, but impacting 14 women a month wasn't the level that Bri and I wanted. And so we had this serious conversation of, so what are we going to do? You know, how are we going to make a greater impact? And we both got this idea separately and we came together and like, oh, this is what I have. And she was like, this is what I have. And when we came together, it was the same thing, which is to develop a membership, to develop an opportunity for women to engage in a deeper way in community. And so that's how we've been scaling our business.
Yeah. So right now we host 4 events a month. And then we have a private Facebook community for our women as well. And then a lot of them get together outside of our coordinated events, which is great. And then, we've already started talking about like, what's it going to look like in the next year or so to expand into New York? And what's it going to look like in the next, 3 to 4 years to expand into the Midwest? And then from there, like, do we continue to grow each and every city, or do we use a franchise model? Like, we're starting to really kind of explore these ideas and these questions, and we're both very guided by intuition. And so it's just a lot of like, what feels good, what feels right. And so we have a few strategies.
And keep it simple.
Yeah, and keeping it simple.
We try to keep things as simple as possible because we run 3 businesses, or
between
2.
the 2 of us. We run 3 businesses between the 2 of us. And I, in my business, have to not only be conscious of Amplify, but also of her business. And so the 3 businesses have like a joint calendar of like what's going on when. Sure. It's intense. So we do want to keep it simple, but we have some plans already to, our podcast was a great one of like, we want to start expanding past LA. So how do we do that easily in a way that feels really good?
So, assuming that I could get invited to one of these events, which I realize I
put on a wig, no.
But walk me through, like, okay, I get invited to one of these meetings, one of these dinner parties. What is that time? Is it an hour, 2 hours? And what happens during? What would I expect during that time with you?
Yeah, most of our events are 2.5 hours long.
Okay.
So the dinner parties are, everyone kind of comes and takes a seat and starts to mingle and meet. And then we typically formally start about a half an hour in, and we do the similar things that we did at our first one, where we all introduce ourselves by our name. But then each month we have a theme. Mm-hmm. So things from vulnerability to communication to passion to, every month.
To guide the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's not just small talk. It's not about the weather. We're actually guiding our women to talk about some deeper things. Yeah. And we try to introduce topics that make people have to think outside the box and share more vulnerably and more real with people. So we break down the conversation to the nitty-gritty about that subject, not to educate ourselves, but to expand our minds and expand the way that we've been operating in our lives because of other people's perspective. So we don't see ourselves in our dinner parties as leaders telling people or coaching people or guiding the conversation for them to, figure something out through what we're teaching them, but it's more like a facilitating conversation.
Yeah. So we just write like 5 or 6 questions before each dinner party and just kind of like start opening up the conversation for the women to explore, like, how has this shown up in your life, or how has it impacted you? How could you have more of it? Like things like that.
And then we also have our mixers.
And then our mixers.
Which is bigger.
50 women.
Yep. Our mixers tend to be 50 women. We collaborate with stores and different venue spaces around LA. Like we have a mixer in February with Sweaty Betty, which is a great brand in the UK. And they're opening up stores here in Los Angeles like crazy. And so we're doing a mixer at their venue. And that's a little less centralized. It's a little bit more open. We do encourage our women to unnetwork, but then they get to mingle around. And one of the things that we take great pride in our mixers is that introverts and extroverts alike are going to feel welcome. No one's going to be the wallflower. No one is going to be standing by the wall, like looking and feeling timid. Like we really encourage all of our women to be very inclusive.
So how do you find each other? I mean, when you think about the women who come to your events and come to your mixers, how do you connect? How do you find one another so they know about you and you know about them, and you get the collection of people that, you know, you're looking for that will help benefit each other?
I mean, so much through social media, and that's one of the main cruxes of the Amplify Collective is using online stuff, because online is great, but so many people use it as a crutch. And so we've decided to kind of connect with people online, but then immediately take them offline. And so that's why we have so many in-person events, is that it's really getting them in the same room together so that they can like give each other a hug and a high five and like really engage and interact on a deeper level.
We also work with a lot of press. We've been on KTLA, we've been featured on Forbes. So we're always looking for media partners to support us in expanding our message.
You know, I think to your point too about social media, even Charlene Lee was talking about the fact that social media has become a bully pulpit. It's not even that place for conversation that it used to be in the way. So your idea of really pulling people out and getting them to engage and interact is really wonderful. I think the other thing that I find really impressive is not only just, you know, what you're doing for women and your vision going forward, but also it's really a message for everyone about the importance of really having deep, meaningful conversations and connecting with people in that way. I mean, how many people do you walk around the street, you see them and they say, how's it going today? It's great. You know, everything's great. And that's about where we operate, right?
Yeah, I just had an interaction this week actually with someone. I wrote about it on Facebook, where I was in an elevator with this guy, and generally I wouldn't say anything. And just with all the charge that has been in the air lately, I decided to connect with him because, you know, it's what we stand for, and why not? And so I asked him, I said, "How are you?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm fine." And then he paused and he looked at me and he goes, "Actually, I'm not." And I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" This guy lives in my building. I've literally never met him before. I had no idea who he was. And he goes, "You know, a good friend of mine was just in a car accident. Like, the weather's really bad out there. So like, please be careful." And I was just like, I was so taken. I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know this guy. And I like opened up vulnerably to me. And I was almost like, "Okay, thanks." And it was super awkward. And I was like, what do you, like, not only are we conditioned to not do that, but we're conditioned not to receive that either. And so I was getting in my car and then I stopped and I was like, wait. And I said, "I really hope that your friend's okay." And he kind of paused and you could see like he was a little emotional and he was like, "Thank you." And it was such like, I feel like that's what we create within Amplify as well. Like we have the opportunities for that every day, but how many of us actually take it? And so Amplify is a safer space to know that,
and to practice
and to know that you're going to be supported. Yeah, basically.
So every once in a while, when you ask that question that we all ask, just to be polite, "How is it going today?" you actually might have someone answer the question for real, right?
And so I actually practice answering for real. So that's been one of my practices, is when someone asks, "How are you doing?" I'm for real in how I'm feeling. I'm like, "I'm feeling sad today and I'm excited to be outside and to, you know, shift energy," or whatever, whoever it is and whatever is appropriate. I'm not going to dump my emotions on a stranger, but I'm really practicing not using the words, "okay, fine, good, great," you know, and really get beyond that, because as leaders, we have to go first, right? If I want to see a change in the world, it begins with me. And so if I'm going to expect people to be more vulnerable and real with me, I have to be willing to be more vulnerable and real with people, including complete strangers.
So where have you seen that? Because again, I think this idea, and I think this is really helpful and important for men and women alike, to go to that next level, to dig deeper, to make deeper, more real connections with people, and not always have to believe that we're in an environment where we always have to put our best face forward constantly. I mean, that's how much energy that takes and how exhausting that is in many respects.
Leo,
so do you have some stories about some people that, you know, you're thinking, mention names, of course, but I just think this idea of you having seen the real benefit of people getting real with one another and what that's produced.
I've seen a video online about the culture of having to put a face, having to put on a face. And in Japan, that's just as profuse, I think I'd say, as in the Western world. And so they created a mask that you can put on your face that's a smile, so that you don't have to put on a face and everyone will just think that you're smiling. And it's a joke, it's a parody, but it plays into the very real dilemma that we all have, which is not being authentically ourselves in the world is exhausting. And putting ourselves up in this fake pedestal of having to pretend that we're better than people and that we have it all together is exhausting. And it's a way that we've been conditioned, like Bri said, for many, 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 many years, that we have to pretend like everything is good in order for us to be seen as professional, in order for us to be seen as someone who you'd want to do business with. But what I find is that it's the people who are most real with me, they're the people that I want to work with. Because if they're real with me now, they're going to be real with me if the project isn't working. They're going to be real with me if their timeline isn't the way I want it to be. They're going to be more likely to call me out on my stuff. And that's the type of people that I want to work with, right? Like if I'm hiring a copywriter, like I want her to say, I don't think this is a good program, and here's why. And if they're not willing to even let me know how they feel, how do I know that they're going to be willing to let me know what's real in my business?
Well, and so two things. One, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the Amplify Collective podcast, because that's one of the ways that you're really spreading the word and through your guests as well, doing that. And then after that, though, I do want to hear, Bri, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the Inspirational Women Project as well. But let's start with the podcast a little bit, because very cool. Love the artwork on the podcast, by the way. It looks great. It looks very real, very authentic, very in the moment, and it's wonderful. But yeah, tell us about the podcast and what how you might describe season 1 and what your expectations are for season 2.
Season 1 was an experiment. We didn't know what we were doing.
Fact.
We were figuring things out as we went. We were figuring out our systems as we went. Our guests were a lot of people that inspire us, but are in our circle, which is a great first place to start. Sure. We brought some incredible people on that we thought were doing incredible work in our circle, which was great. They really helped us expand our podcast. We're right now looking at hitting about 4,000 listens a month, which is really incredible and exciting. We're ready to get a little bit more nitty-gritty in season 2. We're ready to get into some more hard-hitting topics, some topics that may be a little bit more uncomfortable, and inviting in a little bit more robust guests that are highlighting different aspects of living an amplified life outside of the industry of entrepreneurship. Because even though it's really great and inspiring to hear about entrepreneurs doing the same work in the coaching industry or whatever, there's so many amazing people that are CEOs or building businesses or whatever. So they are entrepreneurs, but in a different way. They're making a different impact.
Like more of a global perspective, exactly. I think is what we're wanting to aim for, instead of just this like one specific segment. Like, you said you've listened to a few episodes. We get emails all the time of men listening and people in different countries listening. I mean, our perspective for season 1 was very narrow. Mm-hmm. And so basically for season 2, we're just opening that up.
Expand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we want to talk about things, like we want to talk about real things. Not that we weren't talking about real things before, we were, and we continue to bring that in. It's just, there's like an edginess of life. There's some like deeper stuff that's so juicy that some people are afraid of talking about. And I think it's really important that in order for us to be our best, most authentic, amplified self, we have to be conscientious of these different issues that are going on in the world and find a way to be able to maneuver through them. Life is not sometimes as simple as think positive thoughts. We're navigating through a lot of complicated realities with the political system, our economic system, our global system. And so it's important that we really ready ourselves so that we can step out and be the best people in the world, no matter what's going on.
So before we get to the Inspirational Women Project, I do have a question about the Amplify Collective. Tell me where the name came from.
Oh.
So when we sit down to name things, we sit down a lot. In fact, earlier today, we open up the thesaurus.
So we love the idea of amplification. We love the idea of magnification. And I love one-worders like amplify, catalyst, activate. And so we just brain dumped a whole bunch of words that really inspire, ignite, those type of words. I'm a sucker for those type of
And then we
words.
pulled out the thesaurus and then like really started like, okay, how does this word feel? How does this word feel? And just kind
and
of.
we loved Amplify. Now there is an incubator in Los Angeles called what? Amplify. Just called Amplify.
I think it's called Amplify LA or Los Angeles.
And we didn't want to be in any way, shape, or form confused by them. We didn't want to take anything that they've got going on. And so we knew that it couldn't just be one word. It couldn't just be Amplify. And that's when we started looking at how about words like collective, circle, group, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when we landed on the Amplify Collective.
That's great. So speaking of inspirational, inspirational words, let's talk about the Inspirational Women Project. I'd love to hear a little more about that.
Yeah, it started as an accident.
Another accident. These are good. The happy accidents for you, though.
I think it's all Bri.
I was a fashion designer and I was trying to get women to connect with this idea because I designed very feminine pieces, very womanly pieces. And a lot of women would put them on and they would feel great, but then be like, well, I don't know where I can wear this. And so I was like, how do I get women to connect with their femininity, to connect with this idea of what does it mean to be a woman in the world? And so on my 31st birthday, I started a series of 31 interviews and just had women talking about what it means to be a woman, how they connect with their femininity, all these things. And I was like, oh, that's going to make my fashion brand successful. And as it turns out, the Inspirational Woman Project helped me shut down my fashion brand. It opened the door for me to start writing for the Huffington Post. It landed me on the Today Show, self-published my first volume of my book on Kickstarter, got it out into the world almost 2 years ago, and have just kind of been in this weird, like, unknown holding limbo area then for 2 years. So I have enough content to publish. I have done about over 200 interviews with women over the last few years, and just kind of opening back up now to the idea of what is the book going to look like, because how I had envisioned it, I don't think is how it's supposed to come out. And so I'm still publishing portions of the interviews on the Huffington Post just to kind of keep that ball rolling. And yeah,
nice.
It will all unfold. I wish I had a better answer. You asked and I'm like, oh God, I don't even know what to say.
That's all right. Well, the accidents have been working out well for you so far. So
well, I'm having conversations. I just had a conversation yesterday with someone. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a mentor of mine. Like I'm starting to kind of like open back up the energy and like allow the inspiration to come for what's ahead for it. But in this moment, I don't know. It might just be a Huffington Post series. I have no idea.
So I have another question too. What attracted each of you to being entrepreneurs? What about entrepreneurship did you find?
Neither of us wanted to ever.
Another accident.
Well, she calls herself a reluctant entrepreneur. And I've always said my mom was an entrepreneur when I was growing up. And I was like, oh no, like I'm not. I see. And I'm good. Like, I
operated from the place for many, many years that some company was going to sweep me up and gobble me up, and it's going to be like the most amazing company, like Google, something fancy. And I was going to be able to lead their leadership department in some capacity and do a lot of leadership work within the company. But no one gobbled me up, Leo. Like, no one did that. And I thought doors just going to wide open for me, Leo, and none of that happened. And
you just created your own opportunity. That's all.
Well, what happened instead was I just started going more and more restless in the corporate world. It just was never, I was never doing the work that fully aligned with what I knew was possible for me. And as I was entering my own healing and doing my own inner work and understanding myself in a greater capacity, I just felt a deeper and deeper call that I needed to be teaching this. I needed to be supporting other women through this as well. My history comes from binge eating. I have a lot of experience with past traumas, and I've been learning a lot about leadership. And I just, at that point, kind of knew that I was going to have to fulfill this stupid thing called a purpose, and that stupid thing was going to have to happen outside of the corporate realm. So that was, my realization was about 5 years ago. But I joke that I'm a reluctant entrepreneur because for 3 years of that 5, I was like, I know I need to do this, but I'm really hoping something else is going to take its place. And I just got more and more dissatisfied with the status quo, with what I was doing, with where I was. And the pull to be an entrepreneur just came greater and greater. And it got to the point where I just had to listen. And so I planned to leave my corporate job in June of 2015. And I was going to move across the country with my boyfriend. He was already living in Los Angeles. I was going to move in with him. I had this great plan that, like, you know, he was going to have, because he's a student, that he was going to have a full-time job, that I was going to have, you know, like this thriving business. And it was May of 2015, and I had none of that. And I did it anyway. I took the leap. I quit my job. I moved across the country. I moved in with my boyfriend. He ended up not getting a full-time job for another few months. And my business was kind of stuttering. It was kind of not fully working until Bri and I met. And then we started doing the dinner parties. And because I had this support system that we were creating, it allowed me to have space in my business. And that's when my business started taking off. So it's really cool how all of that came together.
So Bri, how did you meet?
We met, actually, our 2-year friend anniversary is like coming up.
She would know this.
We met in March of 2015.
Well, we met, yes.
At a workshop. And I had met this woman who invited me to this workshop and went, and Thais was there. And we joke that
it was love at second sight.
It was love at second sight. So we met in March, and that's right around when I was shutting down my fashion brand and had like just totaled my car and was like getting ready for like an epic life shift. And she was like packing up everything, getting ready to quit her job and move to LA. And so we were both kind of like in our own worlds and just kind of were like, yeah, I see you and you're a nice person, but like, I don't really have the capacity. So like, we'll just be Facebook friends. And then when she moved to LA is when we started like getting coffee and going out for lunch. And I'd go over and have, you know, wine with her and her boyfriend on the rooftop. And just little by little, things really started clicking into place. And we just kind of like, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that, as you know, no, it really is. It's great. And you know, one of the things that, as you know, I asked you both to think about a little bit as kind of one of the last questions that we'll get into is 10, 20, 30 years from now. Whether it's together, whether it's individual.
I'm like, I got 5-year goals. How's 5 years?
What are we going to expect? What do you want for yourselves? What impact do you want to make?
My 30-year vision is what gets me out of bed. You know, it excites the crap out of me. And I know that my impact personally, my own business, is to support 1 million women rise up. And maybe that 1 million women mark is too small. And maybe I need to be looking at 10 million or 1 billion. But right now, from where I'm at, it feels really good to say, to support 1 million women rise up. And I don't know what that will look like. I allow the how to unfold on a year-to-year basis. I'm not attached to the how, but I know that what I'm doing right now is taking me in that direction. So that excites the fuck out of me. And then I'll let Bri answer her personal 30-year vision. But for Amplify, like I said, we're just starting to see a bigger vision. First, it started with dinner parties, and then it got to the mixers, and then we started doing our membership, the coterie that we love tremendously. We have about 100 women right now in Los Angeles in our coterie, and we're expanding now. We want 300 women by the end of the year. We're looking to expand to New York. So I'm envisioning we're expanding to different cities. We're getting that network figured out about the systems to expand, and then global impact. Yeah. I mean, why not go to London? Why not go to Dubai? Why not go to Australia? Why not go to places where, because our system is not an American system. Our conversation is not a strictly Western woman situation. It's like women tear each other down in every single country, whether it's individualistic or collectivism cultures. Our propensity to tear women down is in direct relationship to our self-criticism and our anger against ourselves for our inability to get what we want. And so I see us, if we can start to cultivate this relationship worldwide for how women can support and connect with one another in a way that makes an impact. I mean, Leo, do you know how beautiful the numbers are? If more women were included in the economic conversation, if more women had more resources and made more money, it would quadruple million billion. I don't know the exact numbers.
Is that a technical term?
Yeah, technical term. I mean, our entire global atmosphere would be radically different. The power lies in the oppressed. And we have a lot of work to do if we're going to rise to a space of equality. So,
the reality is right now we get emails every single week. When are you coming to this city? When are you coming to that city? When will I have an Amplify that I can attend? So women are clearly craving this work, and we're committed for, we joke that we've signed a partnership agreement together in April of last year, and we joke that was our prenup. And then when we filed our corporation paperwork, we're like, well,
we're married.
Like, we can't.
We're married. Now, for those, of course, who are listening just on audio, you're also sharing earbuds. Which is really pretty exciting as well. The partnership keeps advancing, right?
She calls me her wife. It's fine.
I think it's the opposite way. We have fun. And that's been always our metric for whether or not to continue doing this. Are we having fun? The minute this stops being fun is the minute we opt out. Because one of the things that Bri and I have become unapologetic about is that our relationship comes before business. Our relationship comes before Amplify. And our relationship with ourselves comes before any of that. And so the minute we're not feeling good, the minute we're not feeling excited about the idea, we tap out. And we haven't gotten there yet, and I don't think we will. We have created systems for ourselves to make sure that doesn't happen. But what's the point of making a global impact if you're miserable? What's the point of creating these 30-year goals if you're killing yourself every day in the process? We want life to be fun, and we want life to be inspiring, to have ease and joy. And so we're making sure at every step of the way that we're infusing as much space to have that ease as possible.
Well, it certainly sounds like the right attitude. Please keep it fun. It's been fun for me, for sure. Bri Seeley, Thais Sky, the Amplify Collective. Look for it on iTunes. Look for it coming to a city near you. And thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about Peer Advantage, to submit questions to Leo and our guest, and to subscribe to the Year of the Peer podcast, please visit us at leobottary.com. It's leobottary.com. This podcast is produced by me, Randy Cantrell, hosted, of course, by Leo Bottary. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Vibe Ace. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.